So as you may have seen, the next expansion for Diablo 4 has been revealed, Diablo 4 Lord of Hatred, and we obviously just got the Paladin launch with Season 11. We're getting a new class and a ton of new things with the expansion, but one of the biggest changes coming with the expansion is a massive overhaul to our skill trees. And I don't think a lot of players have actually seen some of the screenshots we have, because we've gotten to see some of these new skill trees, and they're much bigger with a lot more variations on specifically your class skills. So I want to go over all the information I could find and take a look at some of these screenshots, because it seems like we're finally going to have a lot of variance and customization for all of our different skills. So first off, we do have a description of this overhaul, but in different articles and in different areas, the system is described a little bit differently, or more specifically, we get a little bit of additional information from each one of these. So first off, in the press section of Diablo 4, they actually have a document that just kind of tells you some things about the expansion. And one of the main things we learn from this characterization is that they're calling this deeply reworked skill trees. So that's kind of the main difference of how they described it there. Then on the official Diablo 4 website, they describe it as reshaped hero progression with deeper customization and new tools for mastery. Major skill tree reworks, including new skill variations for each class, along with level cap increases. So this one is almost also describing some of the rework is the new skills with the new variations, but it seems like there's probably a lot of other reworks and different things within this overarching skill tree rework. But I think the Xbox Wire article gives kind of the most full description of this. And keep in mind, Xbox Wire is an official Microsoft website, so this is official information. So this says this is one of the most comprehensive gameplay evolutions for Diablo 4 since launch. All 8 classes are getting major skill tree reworks, including new skill variants for every class and a new level cap. This will become available whether you grab Lord of Hatred or not. If you do, though, you will also be able to play with a bonus skill variance across each class. So you kind of get a good description of that. This is going to be a pretty big overhaul to the skill trees. These skill variants seem to be the kind of focus of this, but also there's going to be more of them, or maybe a few more skill variants if you get the expansion. My presumption is there's not going to be new skill variants for every skill if you get the expansion or not. There'll probably only be a couple for a couple skills for every class, if they're describing that right, because how they're describing it there, it sounds like if you get the expansion, there's a few additional variants for some of these skills, but they could just be describing it weirdly, because none of these other websites or pieces of information on the expansion says that you get more variants if you get the expansion. So we'll have to wait for further information for that to be clarified. Now, we do have a little bit of footage specifically of the Sorcerer skill tree and the Sorcerer actually using his skill with a new variant, which looks really interesting. But first off, we did get a screenshot on the official Diablo 4 website that shows a section of the Sorcerer skill tree, which shows a few different really interesting things. First off, there seem to be no passives we have seen yet in this new version of the skill tree. Everything we've seen, which in itself looks bigger than the skill tree we have now, even without the passives, is that it's all skills with different upgrade paths for the skills. My presumption is that all of the passives are going to be in its own section in the skill tree, or maybe all of those passives are in a separate skill tree. Like maybe now we have a passive tree and the skill tree. My best guess is that there's just a separate section for passives now, because they also would have either had to make the tree massive or split it up because there's so many different paths for all the skills now. But when you go into all the skills, they will all look very similar. Instead of having the one upgrade you have to select below the tree, and then you select one of 2 options of upgrades, there are now 3 paths to every skill. There are 2 side paths that go into circular upgrades, which I think means that they're passives more akin to the upgrades we're getting right now in our skill trees. Then the middle path has 3 tilted boxes, which seem to be the variants. So you go up one path, you choose one of 2 circular upgrades, you go up the other side path, you choose one of 2 circular upgrades, then you go down the middle path and you choose one of 3 of the tilted box upgrades, which seem to be the actual variants of the skill, which will significantly change how the skill works, maybe even change its element. Now, another thing I noticed specifically for the sorcerer is that in one of the sections, some of their skills are in different areas. I'm presuming this doesn't have any specific meaning to it. They might have just been changed to fit in how their different trees go, but it doesn't seem like any skills are in different categories or in different sections. It still seems that all the skills are in the kind of same sections they are in right now on live. There may be some small changes, but I don't think that's deterministic of any larger changes. Also, something that's really interesting that I think we only get off this screenshot on the website is that all of the skills have 12 ranks, and not like 12 ranks they have other ranks on their skills. Like they can put 12 points into a skill and get 12 out of 12 just from their skill points. I'm assuming this also means we're getting a lot more points. We would probably already have to do unless there's just no passives on the tree anymore. And even if there was no passives, I would assume we would need a lot more points. So my working assumption right now is we get a lot more skill points than we used to. The passives are in their own section on the tree, and now all of the skills can be ranked up to 12. That'll probably just allow for more investment into a skill than you previously could. So overall, right now, we can only put 5 points in. So unless it's like your main damaging skill usually, or maybe your ultimate, you usually only put 1 point in. But if you have a lot more skill points, meaning every skill point is worth a little bit less, you could actually put a few more points into the actual skill upgrade itself and then still max out like your main damaging skills ranks or something like that. And it is also interesting that it seems the paladin skill tree that we have on live right now seems to be a slightly updated version of the skill trees all the other classes have right now, because instead of the 2 upgrades at the end, the paladin has the 3 different choices, and that seems to be how the middle tree or the skill variants of the skill upgrades works. Like I mentioned, you go down the middle path and it has 3 different variants and you choose one of them. So it seems like the paladin may be this in between. It's more updated than the other classes skill trees on live, but it's not the actual fully reworked ones coming with the expansion. Another interesting thing we got to see in specifically the footage of the sorcerer's updated skill tree is that one of their skills we got to see actually had 4 upgrades at the variant path. So they still had the 2 branching paths. You go one of the paths, you get 1 and 2 upgrades. You go the other path, 1 and 2 upgrades. But then the middle path that seems to be the variant, it actually had 4 options, and that was the familiar skill. And I'm assuming that's just because it thematically fits where the familiar is supposed to be able to be all of the elements, or you choose one out of all of the elements. So based upon that, my assumption is that some skills may actually have more than the 3 variant choices, depending if that skill kind of fits in with that. Now, the final piece and the most interesting piece that we got to see from this gameplay trailer is the sorcerer using one of their skills, but using one of the new skill variants to completely change how the skill works. And this is also where I'm getting the information that it looks like the middle upgrade path is the variant section. Because we see sorcerer using a normal ball lightning, where it's lightning, they throw the ball forward and it just moves forward and hits things. But then they go on one of the paths from the variant tree, and it looks to be a fire variant in the tree itself. Then they use this ball lightning, and now it's a much bigger, like, swirling fire orb that you put on the ground and it stays there, and it looks to have a big patch of fire under it, and they just cast them all around. So this completely changes how this skill works, also changes its element into one completely different, which is one of the main things I really want from the skill tree rework, was to allow us to change the element of our skills much more freely into a lot more elements, because there's so many different hooks and damage increases and different effects work with specific elements, but a lot of skills you can't change your elements. So this one is going from throwing out these lightning balls forward to now you place this bigger fireball on the ground that stays there, seems to be swirling around, so maybe it sucks in enemies, but it also has this big fire patch below it, and it seems you could just cast as many of these on the ground as you want or as you can cast. So this variant is completely changing up how ball lightning actually works, changing up its element, so basically allowing for a completely different build with the same exact skill. But that's pretty much all the information I could find on the overhauled skill trees. Right now, it's looking much better than what we have in the game right now. A lot more options, a lot more variation on skills, being able to change up the skills to make completely different builds with the same skill. And again, in the instance of ball lightning, there are now going to be multiple different builds possible with just ball lightning, just by choosing the different variants of the skill, because it completely changes how it works, completely changes its element, meaning you can hook in so many different things into the same skill, and just allows for much greater build variation. And this isn't even talking about the multiple new progression systems we're getting with the expansion, one of them seeming to massively change how different things in the game, or specifically with that class, works. So there's a lot more stuff past the skill tree rework, but the skill tree rework itself seems really good. The only thing I really have questions on right now is, first off, just the specifics, but also where are the passives? Are the passives just not in the skill tree anymore? Are they put somewhere else? Did they split up to a passive tree and a skill tree? Are the passives just in their own section? Do we still have the capstones at the end of the tree? So it really all revolves around those passives, besides just getting more specific information on the upgrades for the skills now. So all in all, very excited for this. There's going to be so many different builds just with the skill tree rework, not even counting anything else. But that's all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.